Part 1 Dusk Houyi the Ten Suns. A prequel to The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, reimagining the legend of Houyi and the sunbirds. The skies were afire. Gone was the calm blue of day, the pale wisps of clouds drifting across the heavens. No longer did the moon and stars light the night. Our world was dying. I glanced up, squinting as the brightness stung my eyes. The burning sky had seemed a mysterious phenomenon at first, each blazing day bleeding into the next until I was no longer sure when it had begun. Only after I had climbed the nearby peak could I make out the sunbirds frolicking above. 10 in all, their merriment rippling off them in flames. My stomach clenched with revulsion at the memory, a grotesque thing for these creatures to rejoice while causing such suffering. I had shouted at them till I was hoarse, but to no avail, which was why I had to stop them today. As I rode upon my horse, heat flared against my face like translucent fire. Each breath seared like inhaling steam, sliding through my nostrils down my throat. Little wonder that I encountered no living creature around, mortals, beasts, and insects sheltering wherever they could, seeking respite from this sweltering torment. In a shady clearing, I tugged at the horse's reins. As she slowed obediently to a halt, I dismounted. I ripped off my helmet, stripping away the armor from my body, the metal burning my fingers. A relief to be clad in just my robe, though it stuck to me as sweat ran down my neck and back. I stashed the armor beneath a tree, not bothering to cover it. No thief would venture out these days, much less have the strength to lug away a pile of metal. For the enemy I faced, it would yield little protection. I would not have bothered with it, except it gave Chang'e some comfort to see me clad so. When I had bidden my wife farewell earlier, she had tried to conceal her worries, evident in the tautness of her smile, the clutch of her embrace, the too bright sheen in her eyes. I had kissed her and held her close, feeling the thud of her heart against mine. If only I could have soothed her anxiety, but I would not relinquish my quest, not even for her. The fate of the realm rested upon my success or failure. There was no greater honor, no more onerous duty to bear. Despite the heat, my blood ran cold, unease thickening in my veins. But I had grown accustomed to silencing fear, a useless thing, the thief of courage and resolve. Doubt afflicts commanders as well, the difference being that we cannot show it. We dare not, if we are to lead, for who would follow a coward? How can we order another to lay down their life when we flinch from it ourselves? So we bury it deep, and if we are fortunate, we might even trick ourselves into forgetting it exists. But my anger, I held fast to it. The unnatural quiet, the shriveling vegetation, the dusty riverbeds without a lick of dark moisture, these feed my wrath and stiffen my resolve. Vital as the moment neared when I must challenge a creature no mortal ever wishes to, one beloved by the gods. We galloped over the barren land, my horse's hooves kicking up clouds of dust. As I inhaled, it choked me, hitting the roof of my mouth, coating the back of my throat. I dug my heels into the horse's flanks, urging her onward. She did not waver, though she was wearied, her movements sluggish and uncertain. Did the heat sap her strength like water from a cracked bucket, or did she sense my own disquiet? My horse had carried me to many a battle, but none like this. This time there was no chaos to drown my doubts, no comrades to protect, nothing to distract from what lay ahead, just eerie silence and mounting dread in this suffocating, all-consuming heat. Deeper in the forest the trees offered a little shade, though their leaves were sparse. We galloped through them until a mountain towered above the cracked plains, just as described in the tales. White mist shrouded its base, rising to grazed the clouds that encircled the peak like a crown of smoke. At once I yanked the reins of my horse, coming to a halt. Kunlun, the elusive and legendary mountain where immortals were said to dwell when they descended to our realm. The sunbirds had not heeded my pleas before, but I would try again from this place, closer to them. Perhaps they would finally listen. I had thought Kunlun a legend, told to young heroes embarking on their first adventure, to rouse their spirits with dreams of glory. It was said rare plants sprang from its soil that could whet the most jaded appetites, that might cure fatal wounds and illnesses. Some believed that it was not only the gateway to the heavens, but to darker realms, those whose names we dared not utter, while fewer even whispered that the secrets of eternal life were hidden there. A magical elixir to take you to the heavens. Many had sought it, both king and commoner. All had returned empty-handed, though their failures did little to dispel the rumor. It might be because we wanted to believe in the promise of life beyond our years. But I was not one to chase after mirages. Eternity only meant something when you had someone to share it with, not when it would take you from all you loved. This close to Kunlun, the air cooled as though this place was shielded from the blistering heat. By the foot of the mountain I dismounted, leading my horse toward a tall outcrop of rock flanked by trees, their leaves still green. I flung a thick blanket over the branches for a makeshift shelter, then looped the reins around a sturdy limb. Pulling out a water skin, I poured a precious measure of water into a bowl that my horse drank with eager gulping sounds. She was patient. She would wait safe in the shade of Kunlun, and if I did not return, she could yank herself free and head home. I straightened, pushing the thought aside. Envisioning defeat was the first step toward it. Instead, I imagined my wife, the softening of her features, the light in her gaze when I returned to her in triumph. How she might trace my face with her fingers as I lifted her in my arms. And once I banished the suns, once night returned to our skies, how beautiful she would look in the moonlight, its pale rays caressing her jade-like skin. When the king had commanded me to confront the suns, to end the suffering of the people, I had obeyed without hesitation. I was not selfless. I was doing this for myself, for my family, to save the world we lived in, the one our child would inherit. When I had weighed these fears alongside the fate of the realm, to me they were one and the same. There was nothing more worth fighting for. A comforting thought whilst danger shadowed every path on the horizon, when every victory would be tainted by threat. Come night, I would either be a charred corpse or have invoked the wrath of a god. But I was no fool. I would try to reason with these creatures. If that failed, I might be able to scare them into leaving. A peaceable solution would be the best recourse, for I had no thirst to spill their blood. I had spilled enough. My boots trod across the grass, soft blades of green interspersed with brittle ones of brown. Dotted among them were small flowers, shaped like stars, though most had shrunken, grown as emaciated as claws. Lifting the water skin to my lips, I took a long and reckless drink. As I closed my eyes, my heart thudded in my chest. And there was something more. That silent thrum reverberating against my body from the bow slung across my back. The silvery metal was carved with the exquisite details of a tiger, the arches from both limbs of the bow shaped like fangs. Somehow it remained cool even after being baked in the sun, as did the pendant tucked beneath my robe, a jade disc carved with a dragon. Was it these that allowed me to venture here? Treasures from the Emperor of Heaven gifted to his chosen warrior to save the mortals, or so I had been told by the white-haired immortal who had appeared in my dreams, bestowing these items upon me. "Tell no one of this," the immortal had said, a faint glow emanating from his form. "It is you alone who must end this, else the mortal realm is doomed. To bring another is to sentence them to death." In his voice rang a note of command that might have chafed had it come from another. But it was not condescension or disdain, it just the irrefutable note of prophecy. I had nodded solemnly in a daze, certain it was a dream. Except I had woken with the pendant fastened around my neck, my fingers clasped around the bow. I was glad Chunga had not seen them, that I did not need to lie to her through the concealment troubled me. Still, it was a precious solace that no matter what happened, I had the Emperor of Heaven's blessing, who was said to be benevolent, wise, and just. At the foot of the mountain a path wound through the cypress trees and bamboo. A welcome breeze stirred the air, laced with the scents of jasmine and sandalwood, of incense, prayers, and hope. My stride was quick but cautious, as the pathway was steep. It would be a sorry fate to slip over the edge and plummet to an inglorious end. But was there such a thing as a good death? All death brought pain, an abrupt ending to an unfinished story, for who could say in all honesty that their life was complete? My mind drifted again to my wife, and I wondered what she was doing. She neither embroidered nor played an instrument. Was she reading? Resting upon our bed. I imagined her pacing the floor. She did not like to be idle, and most of all, she did not like me leaving as I had done, unsure of when I would return. I never wanted to be parted from her either, but I had said nothing, unwilling to distress her with my burdens. Near the peak, the light was almost blinding, the skies drowned in rivers of copper. Above, the sunbirds shone as orbs of living fire, a feather of deepest crimson curling from their brows, quivering like leaping flames, as they soared through the heavens at an unearthly pace. Embers trailed in their wake. 10 suns, when only one should have risen. As my eyes narrowed in fury, they swung toward me in eerie unison as though sensing my thoughts. "Go home, mortal. This is no place for you," one of them said in a voice possessing a sing-song quality to it, like a child reciting a nursery rhyme. I rose to my full height, speaking as steadily as I could. "It is you who must go home. You have scorched our forests, dried our rivers, and withered our crops to ash. Many mortals have already perished. Countless more are suffering." As silence descended, I began to hope they would heed my words, that perhaps they had not heard me the last time. But then, the largest sunbird cocked its head and laughed. "If mortals are dying from this, you are far too feeble. You look well enough, with flesh on your bones and the strength to climb Kunlun." Another swooped closer, claws gleaming. "Do not lie to us, mortal. Kunlun below is lush and green." I gritted my teeth, swallowing my anger. I am more fortunate than others. I am the king's general. Kunlun may be protected from your harm, but look upon the lands beyond. See the devastation you have wreaked. "Devastation?" one repeated in disbelief, ruffling its vermilion feathers. "Our light is a blessing. We are revered, worshipped, mourned when winter shortens our flight. For too long we have been yoked to sunrise and sundown. Now we have tasted the freedom of playing together in the skies. We will never relinquish it. We will never leave. We are enjoying ourselves too much." "You must," I spoke forcefully in a voice my soldiers feared. "You are killing our world. You are killing us all." One of them, smaller than the rest, tilted its head. The feather of its brow glowed like metal worked in a forge. "Sisters and brothers, maybe we should go home to Mother. She must have recovered by now. She must be worried. Or furious." "She will not mind," one of her siblings assured her. "She does not care for the mortals. Otherwise she would have come to stop us before." Was their mother the goddess of the sun? Why would she let them sow such destruction? And what might she do to me should I hurt them? No, I rebuked myself. I must not think on this. I must focus on the perils at hand, not allow new ones to spring to life. The largest sunbird spoke now. "Little sister, don't let this mortal frighten you. He is a fraud who spins tall tales. We have heard no cries from here." Their insults stung, but I would not be baited. "You heard nothing because you chose not to listen. Descend closer to the earth. Let your eyes and ears reveal the truth." "A clever ruse," another scoffed, its feathers a deeper gold than the rest. "He is a fortune hunter, seeking to capture us. This is no more than a hot summer." The others nodded eagerly, the smallest sunbird bowing her head in acquiescence. As they shot into the skies again like the blades of a fan flared wide, the hold over my temper wavered. "You heartless creatures!" I accused them in ringing tones. "I am neither a liar nor a fortune hunter, but a warrior who has fought many battles, defeating monsters across our realm. Return home, or I will show you no mercy." I did not know where this reckless boast came from, but I could not take it back. I dared not reveal the terror that clung to my bones like ice. "Make us go," one jeered. "Even the celestial emperor dares not strike us. Neither mortal nor immortal can stop us when we are all together." Celestial Emperor, I repeated in confusion. I have heard of no such monarch. They ignored me, spiraling higher into the skies like fiery comets. In a moment they would be out of hearing, out of reach. Wait! I called after them in desperation. Why do this? Why don't you leave us in peace? The largest of them swung around, swooping toward me in lazy circles. Its pupils glinted wetly like newly spilled blood. Because it pleases us to, it hissed. Because we are bored of our duties. To light this world at dawn and depart at dusk. Because we want to be freed of such shackles, to play together, and most of all, because we care nothing for your pathetic world. As it flapped its wings, flames surged from its feathers, scorching my robes. At once I dropped it down, rolling on the dirt to extinguish them. Their laughter rang clear, resonating between my ears. Fury seared like a fistful of coals against my chest. Such lack of remorse was despicable. I shot to my feet, whipping the silver bow free and raising it high. My fingers plucked its string, curving easily in my grasp, as a translucent arrow of ice formed between my fingers. I steadied my grip. A strange pulse thrummed through my veins, sapping my strength. Not in the strain of limbs, but somewhere deep in my core. Drawing a long breath, I drove all distraction from my mind. The arrow sprang free, cleaving a path between the sunbirds. I had not missed. I had sought to snare their attention, not draw their blood. Go now, or I will strike you down the next time. My tone thickened with menace. Persuasion had not worked. All 10 sunbirds stilled, their heads swinging my way. Mortal, how did you come by this weapon? One snarled it. The Emperor of Heaven. The proud words leapt to my tongue, but I recalled the immortal's warning to say nothing. Do you know it? Do you fear it? I challenged instead, hoping to scare them. I have never missed my shot. Leave now, and I will not harm you. All will be well. Their laughter was like the jangling of brass wind chimes. As they shook their feathers, a seething shower of sparks cascaded upon me. I darted aside just in time before I caught fire. Mortal braggart, a sneer rang out. You'll never strike us. You are too slow. I ground my jaws together. It had been a long time since anyone dared to mock me. Something in the way they spoke reminded me of children's taunts, the bullies others steered clear of on the playground, yet their actions were beyond redemption. They would not stop, so I would make them. Pride lifted my chin as I met those 10 pairs of blazing eyes, even as my mind frantically searched for words that might soothe the roiling tension. Before I could speak, the large one spread its wings. Scuttle home, mortal. Irk us further, and we will hunt down your kin and scorch the flesh from their bones, then pluck their eyes from their sockets. As the others cackled, an image of my wife slid into my mind, Chang'e in the clutches of these cruel creatures, their claws sinking into her tender flesh, her eyes wide with horror before they were torn out. My limbs clenched with terror. Rage descended like a dense fog, a single desire hardening within to destroy these wicked creatures who threatened us all. To them, mortal lives were as dispensable as fruit plucked from a tree and tossed away after one bite. Casting my doubts aside, I drew another arrow, letting it fly, hurtling through the nape of the sunbird, the one that had dared to threaten my beloved. It was the largest of them all. Perhaps its defeat might shock the rest into retreat. I had no desire to hurt them, but I would do what I must to keep us safe. Amber drops of its blood splattered as its piercing cry wrenched the quiet, raising the hairs along the back of my neck. The creature convulsed in throes of agony, frost forming upon its body as the flames from its feathers extinguished, leaving them as dull as ash. The creature fell from the sky, not like a stone, but like a kite spiraling down on a windless morn. It slammed into the ground, its claws curled inward, its splayed wings unmoving. Fear stabbed deep, remorse slashing my chest. With this one strike, all hopes of a peaceable solution had disintegrated. How could I have allowed its threats and mockery to get me as though I were some untrained soldier? I had been cursed, menaced, and cajoled in battle before. But when the sunbird had threatened my family, my wife and my unborn child, something in me broke. There was no choice now but to see this to the bitter end. I must slay them all without mercy, for if not, they would hunt me down and all I loved, no longer for sport, but for vengeance. Far more vicious, infinitely deadlier. Screeches rent the air, stabbing my ears. As one, the sunbirds plunged toward me, swifter than a gale. I dared not look away from the murderous glint in those red-ringed eyes, 18 of them now fixed upon me. My hands were steady despite the terror that clawed my insides, until I was raw all the way through. My fingers worked quickly, ice arrows flying free, slicing through the flames. Another fell, then a third, its feathers scorching my shoulder as it crashed by my feet. Blood slid over my knuckles, running down my arm. My palms were slick with it, and as for the pain, I felt nothing, my instincts binding tight the horror swelling within. A strange exhaustion took root within my core, fatigue so heavy it was like being entombed in stone. As a wave of fire erupted toward me, faster than I could evade it, my arrow sprang forward to take down another sunbird. I did not risk my life lightly. I would fight until my last breath. I braced for pain, for my skin to blister. Regret pulsed through me as quickly as my stuttering heartbeat. To have held my wife a little longer, to have looked upon our child's face. Flames engulfed me, ravenous and hissing. My eyes squeezed shut, stung by the smoke and glare, seeking a shard of sanity in this nightmare. As I drew in one ragged breath, then the next, it struck me. I was still alive. There was no agony or torment, none beyond my fatigue and bloodied hands. I forced my eyelids apart. A cool light sheathed me, rippling across my body, quenching the fire. It was as the immortal had said. The jade pendant had protected me from the sunbird's attack. Relief swept through me. I would not die today. I would keep my promise to my wife and return to her. A numbness took over, my hands working at a feverish pace. Arrows sprang from my fingers with renewed vigor, whistling relentlessly through the air to plunge into sunbirds. My body instinctively swerved from their attacks, the sparks that scattered like wind-blown pollen. As I aimed my next arrow, I stilled. Alone in the clear heavens shone a single crimson sphere. Just one sunbird left, when there had been 10. It hovered above as though frozen by grief or terror, or both. Something yanked at my chest, a weakness that must be quashed. I could not show this creature any mercy, for vengeance must be rooted in its heart. It had watched me slay its siblings. It must hate me beyond all reason. I would not be so careless to leave this enemy alive. I would destroy it despite the pity burrowing through me. I steeled myself, raising my bow, a shaft of ice gleaming between my fingers. My gaze narrowed until all I saw was the shining beacon of light, its pupils no longer red but as black as mine, as my wife's, as my child's would be. "Don't kill me," its voice cracked with emotion. "Who will light your world if you do?" "Little sister," the others called her. She was the one who had tried to persuade the others to leave, but she was no less guilty than the rest, her actions speaking louder than her words. And yet the fear thrumming in her tone and the truth in her plea halted my hand. As my rage receded, the heat dissipating from my veins, reason returned to berate me. Was I cruel enough to strike this final blow? "How can I trust you? You will seek vengeance on me." My hands did not falter, keeping the arrow trained upon her, yet it was harder this time, a leaden weight in my chest. "I swear to perform my duties to the mortals, to never seek revenge," she said with utter solemnity. "I slew your siblings, all 9 of them." I said not to gloat, but to test her. A sigh unfurled from her throat like the wind rustling the leaves. "I would gladly peel your skin from your flesh and scatter your bones to the 4 seas." Her gaze radiated heat, her tone rolling with grief. "But I want to live. I want to return to my mother. I will keep my word to you." Her vehemence was chilling, yet her honesty convinced me more than any plea or flattery. She did not seem terrifying any more. quivering as though afraid, though her power was undoubtedly vast. Had I been wrong? Had I mistaken the sunbird's callous, youthful arrogance for pure wickedness? It did not justify their actions, and yet the possibility sickened me. "Go," I said in a low voice. "Return home." Not another word did she speak, spreading her wings and soaring away. The skies were no longer ablaze, but a peaceful blue once more. I sucked in a breath of air and held it fast, devoid of that tinge of char, its heat blunted. I dropped the bow, falling to my knees. In the distance, cheers erupted, and borne on the wind, I caught the faint chant of my name. They must know it was my hand that brought down the sunbirds, that I had saved us all. But where was the triumph? Why was there grief? And what would be my reckoning? One sunbird left to light the realm, a grain of solace to her parents void of grief. I did not delude myself. I had not been generous today. I was a thief, stealing 9 times over a parent's joy. Now that I would become a father soon, I understood the devastation I had wreaked upon this family. Immortal hearts must bleed as mortals once do. Such an offense could never be forgiven, no matter my reason, and despite the sunbird's vow, vengeance would burn unquenched in her bloodline until I was buried in the earth, my name forgotten. The sunbird was now a speck in the sky, the curtain of dusk was following swiftly on her heels. Night would descend again, and mortals everywhere would heave sighs of relief. But as I stared at my hands wet with my own blood, the 9 feathered bodies of the sunbirds strewn across the ground, I could not shrug aside the crawling unease that this was not the end, but a curve in the path, and with so much to live for now, a beloved wife and a child to come, for the first time, I feared the stirrings of change.